Welcome, Gail Doby, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about the work you do. Today, I have you on as a business coach. Business coach is a very vague term, I know, in your line of work because you do so much more than that. But in your own words, can you explain the work that you do and how you help the world?
That's a great question. And I actually like to answer that in a couple of different ways. First of all, we work a lot with creative entrepreneurs. So that means specifically interior design firms. And the work that we do goes very deep. We try to work with a company to figure out exactly what is your vision, what is your passion, what are the things you're doing in your business, what systems do you need, how can you manage your time better. We work on all of these things, and then we help them with a financial model. That is part of what we call creative value blueprint. And then the other piece of this, which I think fits in with your audience, is that we do what we call business therapy.
And then just looking at the start, right? You're helping companies find their vision, right? So if a company is starting off and they have an idea, they have an inkling, what are some methods or some ways or some steps that you help someone find that vision?
Well, first of all, they have to look at internally, what is it that they care about? They themselves, what is important to them? Is it family? Is it achievement? Is it being visible in the community? Is it doing good for other people? What is it that really drives you as a person? Because first you have to know what's going to motivate you to do the hard work that's involved in building a business. Once you figure that piece out and what it is you're really great at doing that nobody else is great at doing in your area, that helps you define your vision much more succinctly and easily.
Do you hold the concept of that everyone has something to offer? So there's something that you can do that I can never do, and there's something that I can do that you can never do.
Absolutely. I think for every single person in the world, we all have a unique view of the world and the way we listen and the way we process things, and also in our creative response to those things that are coming at us. So, in my view, it's really about finding your unique voice and not worrying about what everybody else thinks and not worrying what those people say about you, because it really doesn't matter. In the end, what matters is that you're authentic to yourself and that you're able to deliver a service in a way that you're proud of and that your clients are happy with. And they'll show you that and they'll pay you. And that's where you have earned the value.
That uniqueness or that fear of putting yourself out there, I mean, it stems from so much. It could be from our childhood, maybe when we were teens, maybe young adults. It stops us from being courageous, being, I guess you can say, like a sunflower. We want to bloom, and we are just kind of in the shadows more so than anything. A lot of people operate in the shadows and they tiptoe throughout life. I know when you're a business owner, it's a lot more than just, okay, I'm on Google, I did some ads, and then clients come to me. It's so much more. There's so much work that involves business, and it can be overwhelming. And sometimes there's naysayers, and it's even more difficult when those naysayers are like your friends or your parents, people you hold dear, and they're saying, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You can't do this. It's too much work. You need to stop. That type of negativity, it kind of, I guess, will go into that aspect of like business therapy, where you're helping someone deal with their emotions, deal with all their insecurities and their doubts on making sure that they can have a successful business, have their vision come through and become a reality versus, okay, I have a thought and there's no action. And I think a lot of people, they have a wish, they have an ideal, they have a plan, but when it comes to the action part or the consistency part, they fall short. How do you help people be consistent through all those hardships, through all the negative society views? I mean, you name it, it's there.
Well, I think you and I probably both feel those things too. And we overcome those every day because we have to. But I think the thing that I have noticed over the years is that if I can at least help people identify, where did this start? Was it back at 6 years old? Was it at 12 years old? And I'm not a licensed therapist at all. But what I try to do is find out what the root cause of it is. And then if we can identify that, then we can say, okay, great. Well, that was the past. Is that really applicable to today? And if we let other people's opinions of us stop us, then we are basically giving our power to other people. So I think the real key here is to understand that we need to step into our power to run a successful business. And every day we're going to be tested. And if we want to be the best we can possibly be, we need to be looking for the areas where we are resistant to doing something because we're fearful. And that is the key that tells us we should be doing that. Because every single time you're resistant is because you're going to find out on the other side of this that you actually are the powerful person that you didn't know that you were. And if you can go ahead and step on the other side of it and do it, all of a sudden, all of that fear goes away. And all of a sudden, you realize you are confident and you are capable of doing that. So the most important thing is to step into that fear and do it no matter what.
Yeah, fear has, I guess, two acronyms: face everything and rise, or forget everything and run. And it's a widely known saying of what fear is. And I think many people choose the latter. They run. They say, you know what? It's too scary. It's too much work. And I'm not going to sit here and say that having a business is easy. It's not. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of sacrifice. It's a huge commitment. But you really have to want something for your life and for the world. And I think the world aspect kind of pushes me more than just my life, because my life is just one piece of the puzzle. But how many people can I impact in the world, right? That is what I start to think about. Because if I don't have this podcast, if I don't have my business, am I making the difference that I really want to? Am I doing everything I can? And I'm sure at the end of the day, if I really looked at every little nook and cranny of my day, I can find some holes where I could say, I could have been better. I could have done something else. I guess it goes a little bit into self-care. It goes into a little bit of knowing when to push and when to kind of pull back and take a break. But when someone is pushing, they're saying, okay, I'm not going to be fearful. I'm going to really push and start my business and put myself out there. Is there a balance that you try to help your clients with to maintain or to attain so that they can get to that finish goal?
Well, that's a complex question. And I think what you're getting to is that, first of all, if you have an authentic goal for yourself and you are doing it for you and not for anybody else, you will find the motivation. You might need a little help. You might need a little coaching to be able to make that happen. But if you have a high enough desire, you will accomplish it. The idea is, to me, is to help people start counting their wins instead of counting their fears. And if they can start counting their wins, then they're going to start having more confidence to do things that are not necessarily easy. Because as we all know, you don't make progress unless you do something that hasn't been done. And you and I are doing a service that many other businesses do, but we each have our unique personality and we're bringing that to what we do. And if we just know that our purpose is to do a great job for the person we're serving and that we have a focus on them instead of us, we tend to forget about our own fears. So to me, that's really the key, is to focus on the delivery of the value to another person instead of on what your fears are. And you will forget about yourself and you'll be able to power through and do a lot of things you can't even believe that you're capable of.
And then we get into the aspect of what is a coach too, because the coach is going to be the person who's going to help guide you, keep you accountable, keep you on track, right? And then also be your biggest cheerleader, especially if you have those doubts and you might be uncertain. You have an inkling of what you would like to do, but then at the same time, you also have that fear saying, run away, run away. And sometimes that fear can be a very loud voice in your head. And then that saying, keep push, is that very quiet whisper. And sometimes that whisper is what we have to listen to. We really have to pay attention to. I think that is to the coach too, because everyone has a different personality. I was just talking to another coach about this, where coaching a session is about bringing on other coaches, different personalities, because my personality is very different than a lot of coaches that I speak with. I'm very militant in the sense of how I do things. And it's not that I don't practice self-care with my clients. It's not that I don't hold the space for them. I'm just brutally honest. I'm not going to sugarcoat things too much, right? You know, like it's probably like less than 10 grams of sugar in what I'm going to tell you. So it's perfect for a diabetic. And what I want for them to realize is that I'm here to help you. I'm not here to sugarcoat things, fluff things up. I'm here to tell you the means of what you need to do. Sometimes the truth hurts. And I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I just want you to be aware of how you need to move. Some clients, they need that gentle touch. Some clients, they need that firm hand. I say, you know, I like the way you move. Versus some are like, all right, I need to pull back a little bit because they're a little bit more sensitive, more emotional, things like that. Typically, I don't work with very sensitive, emotional clients. I work with people who have their mindset in check, have their emotions in check, because I'm all like, let's get it done, right? There's nothing that's going to stop us. Let's get it done. If you're familiar with David Goggins, that type of mentality. It's like, we're going to get it done. There's no break. It doesn't matter if it's raining outside. Oh, well, if there's a tornado outside. Oh, well, if there's a depression. Oh, well, right. We figure it out and we move that way. Kind of tell the audience who you are. The audience already knows who I am because I have this whole podcast. They know me. They know how I act. They know my mindset. But for a new coach like you, tell us a little bit about how you grew up, your careers, and then how you work with your clients now. What type of mentality do you have?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that question up because I do think about this a lot. I'm from the Midwest, and Midwesterners typically are pretty direct, and I can be really direct. So I may not be quite as direct as you are, being a female. And yet on the other side, I'm not super soft. So if somebody is coming to me to tell them they're wonderful and it's all going to be okay, that is not who I am. So I'm very prescriptive. To me, that's part of why people are coming to me is they want to know what to do. So they're not asking me to guess. They're asking me to use my best knowledge based on coaching hundreds of people and even having thousands of people listen to me on different programs that I've done. And so what I would say is that I'm probably a little bit more on the pushier side of, okay, I'll give you an example. I had a client about 2 weeks ago. He was telling me about where he was financially. And I said, send me your financial. I looked at his P&L and I said, oh my God, how did this happen? And he was actually losing money on several products. And I said, okay, let me explain to you how to calculate what is happening here. And I said, who did this on your team? And he told me, and I said, okay, fire that person. That person needs to go. You cannot afford to have that person do any more proposals for you because that person is putting you out of business. So that's an example of me being very tough with somebody. Has he made that change? No, but he is working toward that. And so what I find is that you can be hard and give somebody a very direct suggestion about what they should do, but they have to ultimately make that decision about whether they're going to apply it or ignore it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the harsh role of the CEO or the president or just the leader of the company. For example, last week I had to fire my secretary because he wasn't getting the work done the way I needed it to get done. And then also the lying and the deceit on top of everything. It's kind of like I have the text or rather the email of you saying you're going to do this. Friday comes. Hey, is the project done? No, it's not done. I didn't even start it yet. I'm like, well, you told me you were going to do it. Oh, I missed that. Right. Well, I was like, that's not going to happen again because I'm going to have to let you go, right? It's not that I mean, it's just that I understand the aspect of business, right? It either gets done or it doesn't get done, and it has to get done. We have to remain on track. We have to remain consistent, and we have to remain moving forward. I understand the aspect or the idea of maybe taking a step back to take 2 steps forward, but we're not at that point, especially if you're doing something like accounting or if you're a secretary and you're making sure all the clerical work is done, or emails are done, or projects, there's a timestamp. One of the things I like about college, and this kind of goes on a little tangent, the thing I like about college is that you have a professor, the professor tells you, you have a paper due, this is the syllabus, these are when the papers are due, and you need to get them done, or you don't have to get them done. If you don't get them done, this is 30% of your grade, this is 50% of your grade, this is 10% of your grade. It tells you exactly on the syllabus how much you're going to lose if you don't get a job done or an assignment done. In life, we don't have that. We don't have a boss saying, hey, this is 10% of your role. This is 20%. This is 50%. You need to be paying attention. We kind of give people a vague understanding of what they do, their tasks, and then they kind of do it. Sometimes people can be very attentive, especially workers. They could be more attentive. And then you're like, okay, this person is an all-star versus someone who's lackadaisical, maybe slouch, procrastination, right? All of those different things. And if we look at what the pandemic did, it caused a lot of workers to be more lax, right? People would rather stay home and not work. Unemployment kind of made that a thing for people. They're like, well, I actually get paid just about the same as if I would go to work. So a lot of people now are not wanting to go to work. And then we have our, I guess, Gen Z people where they don't want to work really. They would rather be on their phones, even if they get a job, let's say at Starbucks. They might be on their phone, fooling around, not wanting to do the job. That work ethic is gone. How do you help business owners, similar to that client that you had 2 weeks ago, find those good people? Because you were able to see as a coach, hey, this person's a bad person. Like they're not helping your company. How can you help your clients see that too?
Well, that's also a great question. And I think that you're touching on something that is really important, and that is accountability. And accountability is something that is so hard to describe, but you know it when you see it. And you either have the result or you don't. So, for example, you were saying school, you had the opportunity, you lose 30% of your grade if you don't get this in. Well, the bank account for the owner of the business is going to be affected by the things that don't get done. And so every single person that works on the team must be rowing in the same direction to help you accomplish your goals. And if they're not, they need to go. So this goes back to accountability and you holding your team members accountable. And I will tell on myself that I have a hard time confronting people. It's not my favorite thing to do. And I now have learned to say, I don't love doing this, but we need to have a hard conversation because this is not getting done and it must get done. And we have a deadline, and I need to know that you're going to follow through on this. And so you teach your clients that are under your tutelage as a business coach that that's the way you need to do it. So you can still be nice about it and try to remember that the person has feelings. And certainly I don't yell at anybody, but I will let them know if they are dropping the ball and they are leaving us in a bad place in our company. So I think that's one of the things that's most important is people need to understand the impact of what they are not doing and not completing. So they must be accountable, not just to themselves, but to everybody within the company. Because if you don't do your job, it's going to impact other people. And that person will lose a job eventually if they don't follow through. So that's what I teach our clients because they must understand that it's their responsibility to hold people accountable.
And then we get into the aspect of that client or the owner, the leader taking on the whole role of the company by themselves. I have to do the accounting. I have to do the projects. I have to do, client acquisition. So they're doing all this. So it's a lot for them, right? It's a hefty plate. I tell people to delegate things. I delegate so many different things myself. If I don't want to do it necessarily, or if I'm not maybe the best at it would be better for me to delegate it because how long would it take me to do something versus if someone else who already had the expertise to do it did it? For example, let's just use accounting, right? Tax season comes. It might take me maybe 12 hours to do my taxes by myself versus the accountant. If they were on it for the whole entire year, they might be able to spend 3, maybe 4 hours on it. Say, okay, we look good. All the financials look good. These are the numbers versus me going through all my receipts and going through all my accounts and like, okay, this is ridiculous. It's a lot. And then you have your own life and you have other aspects of the business that you need to worry about, especially as a coach. For me, I have a lot of clients that I have to speak with. So on that, on top of the accounting, on top of reaching out to new people, it becomes a lot. How do you help people delegate that work where it might not be as important for them to send an email and to have a secretary or to have someone else on their team do it rather than them doing everything?
Well, first of all, they need to understand what they're giving up if they continue doing those jobs. So if you can pay an accounting person $35 an hour to do your accounting work for you, and you can earn equivalent of $100, $200, $500 an hour, then you are crazy to be doing accounting. So all you have to do is look at that and say, how many of my hours am I not doing work that is my zone of genius? And that zone of genius should be at least half of your hours that you're putting in. So if you work 2,000 hours a year, 1,000 of those should be in your zone of genius. Let's just say that that is a $100 an hour type of thing. So that's $100,000. So you definitely can look at it from a very financial framework and say, if my time is worth that, then I do not need to be doing things that I don't like to do and I'm not good at doing. So it's really about getting clear about what you should and shouldn't be doing and look at your zone of genius and focus on those things. And I will tell you that this coaching business has been in business for almost 15 years. And 14 of those years, we have been virtual. And so our whole team is spread out across the country. We have 2 out of 5 people on the leadership team that are contractors. They are not full-time, but they are here. They've been with us for 11 years and 9 years. So you can find incredible people that you can completely trust to do the things that you don't like to do or that you shouldn't be doing so that you can spend your time really building a business, building the relationships, doing the marketing, doing the things that you are so good at doing. And if you do that, you're going to probably double your income just by letting go of all those other things that you've been doing that aren't appropriate for you.
And then we get into the aspect of how much are you worth per hour, right? So we look at that hourly thing. I'm going to pay an accountant $30, $35 an hour to do my accounting versus me making $100 an hour, right? So if I make $100, so I'm making $65, right? Now, sometimes coaches, especially coaches, after our interviews, typically I'll speak with coaches for a little bit after, just talk about mindset, how everything's going. And one of the things we talk about is money. We talk about like, how much are you worth, right? And it's not so much of, well, tell me all your assets, like how much, is your mortgage and things like that. It's kind of like, what do you feel like your service is, right? Like, do you feel it's like $100 service, $200 service? And it's always a difficult question because they struggle with that. They struggle with, how much should I charge someone? What is fair? How do you help people decide, okay, this is what you should be charging, or I believe that your company should be charging this much?
I think you hit on something that was very important, and you may not have thought about it at that moment when you said it. But there are two things that are happening when people are thinking about what they're worth. They're thinking emotionally versus thinking logically. And one of the things that we do through our process and the way that we teach people is we do talk about the emotional piece. But when we talk about the worth and how much they're going to charge, we look at hard facts. We look at the numbers, and that is unemotional. So if we start looking at what it really costs them to run their business and what they're trying to achieve in terms of an income and bottom line profit, then I can build a model for them and show them. And as soon as they see that, they have this epiphany that, oh, okay, in order for me to do that, then I must charge $250 or $500 an hour. And so based on that, the answer is very clear cut and it's unemotional. So then you have to get over the emotional fear of just charging that fee. But the reality is, I just had this conversation yesterday with a client, and she was saying, well, I'm not going to put a markup on product, and I'm just going to charge 40% of the overall budget for my fee. And I said, how do you know that's going to make any money? And she said, well, I don't. And I said, then let's look at the numbers. So we looked at her P&L, and I showed her, you have to charge at least 50% just to make 8%. So if that's the case, you need to make a decision that you are going to make money and that you're not going to fund or support that person's goals and not take care of yourself. So I was able to take her out of the emotional decision and make a logical decision. So I think that's the real key. And one of the things I try to help my clients understand is you need to start looking at your business as a non-emotional kind of a machine, and that you are an emotional person running that non-emotional machine. So if you can separate the two and see where you're getting in your own way and attaching emotions to your decisions, you can then let go of a lot of those things that are stopping you from your success.
I think if anyone was to reach out to you, I think that would be like the number one thing that they would be wanting to get a hold of, from you. They'll say, listen, I need to know how much I need to charge. Look at my numbers, right? Because a lot of people struggle with that. It's not just business owners, it's coaches, it's a babysitter, things like that. People are just not confident in asking for how much money they should ask for the task. For example, I just got a nanny. My son is 3 months old. I just work too much. My wife wants to work, so she doesn't have to work, but she wants to, so I'm not going to stop her. So she wants to work. So I says, okay, well, we're going to need someone to watch the kid. So we had got a nanny, and the nanny was out of work. It's a friend's daughter. So it was a close relationship, right? Where the girl was, I guess, a little bit timid to ask for a lot of money. And so I'm thinking, like, I'm going to pay them $15 to $20 an hour to watch the kid. And they're thinking like in the lines of $13. And I'm like, why are we thinking so low, right? For me, in my head, I'm like, if you're going to charge that much, it's like, that's a reflection of the work you're going to do. So like, if I give you $20 an hour, I'm expecting my son to be taken care of like the best that you can do versus, all right, I'm just kind of scraping by with this $13 an hour deal. I'm like, no. You pay for what you get. Sometimes, you can get a bargain. Like my coaching is extremely affordable, and I do have a reason why I do that. But for other people coming in and they're asking me like, hey, like I charge this much, or And I'm like, I'm going to up your salary. And I always ask every employee that I hire, what is your expected salary for the year or hourly rate, depending if we're going hourly or salary? And I ask them, and they are always like, I don't know. So they're always that self-confidence right there. Like, tell me what you want. Tell me what you are due. And this is a question that one of my mentors asked me. He was a retired executive for General Motors. And so big head honcho guy, right? His attitude was similar to mine, militant. He's like, it's good to get done, right? No matter what went wrong, he was there. He was a good guy. One of the questions he asked me that woke me up was, how much are you worth? And I'm thinking in my head, I'm priceless, right? I'm just like, I can't put a price on me, right? But then I'm thinking, all right, well, let me look at my assets. So I'm looking at my assets now. And he's like, no, you don't get it. How much are you worth? If someone wanted to say, hey, Michael, I want to take an hour of your time for coaching, how much are you going to charge this individual? That was something I didn't know. And that was back in 2018. And that was like right before I started my business. So it was like, okay, what am I doing? Right? Like, how do I figure this number out? And it took me months to figure it out. To your point, taking away that emotional aspect of it too. I'm priceless. There is no price for me. And then we look at the college, we look at the work experience, we look at the real aspect of how much I should be charging. And then I guess the emotional aspect of, do you feel comfortable charging this too? Because sometimes you can have an inflated sense of worth. I was reading a book. It's called $1 Million Habits. And one of the things he talked about is toward the end of the book, he had hired a secretary or a receptionist or something. And she says she's the best, right? So her idea was, I'm the best. And he's like, well, if she says she's the best, she must be the best, right? So she's working a couple months in and she's making mistake after mistake after mistake. The owner is thinking in his head, like, well, she says she's the best, so she must be the best. She just, having some trouble acclimating, right? But all the other workers are pulling their hair out. There's so many mistakes. And it took him about, I think, 4 or 5 months, I believe he said in the book, that, okay, it took me that long to fire her. That is detrimental, where she's making mistakes for that long. And for me, it's like week one, depending on how long you've been working for me, though. Because if you've been working for me for like 6 months and you make a mistake one week or a deadline is not reached, I'm going to be understanding. I understand we have a life. I understand things happen. But if it's like your first 2 months of working with me and something happens and something doesn't get done, it's like, hey, I need, like to talk to you, or how you said, I don't like doing this, but I got to tell you the hard truth, and it's not working. And that goes into, sometimes people can have an inflated sense of, this is my worth, right? How do you help them really say, okay, are you too high? Maybe if they are too high, or maybe they're too low. What is your experience with that? Do you think people are too low more often or too high?
Absolutely too low, almost all the time. Great story. I had a client that came to me in 2014. And she was making under 50,000 a year. And she had her own business and her husband had his own business and they had no savings. And she started coaching with me and she did a VIP day. And I did this process and I helped her see what she needed to do. And I said, the very first thing you need to do is you need to double your rates. And she was shocked. And I said, yes, if you're going to do coaching with me, you have to go and double your rates. And she said, okay, well, how do I do that? So I helped her. I helped her frame exactly what she would say. And I said, just do the first one. Once you do the first one, the rest of those will be fine. So the first one, she goes and talks to the client, longtime client. They loved her. And she said, I understand that I must charge more. And this is what I need to be charging. And here's my new rate. And they said, oh, okay, no problem. Good for you. She goes on to the second one. Same thing happens. And the guy said, I need to do this. This is a great idea. He went along with the doubling the price. Goes to the third one. Same thing happened. So from that thing alone, she went from no savings to within 6 months having 100,000 in the bank. So that big result that she got was from trusting me and doing what I suggested, because I actually helped her script it. All she had to do was follow through. So she did, and she got the results. And so I think that's the real key here, is to understand that if somebody on the outside understands the financial model and can help you build that, and you can see what it's going to take for you to have the lifestyle that you want and the kind of savings, the financial freedom, and they can show you how to do it and how to charge according to that for you only, not for everybody else, but for you, then you could be confident in what you're doing. So to me, that's really about having some real numbers that are behind what you're doing. And all you have to do is get comfortable with this. And if you need to practice this in front of the mirror, if you need to practice with your best friend, if you need to try a role playing conversation out with someone else, then find a coach or somebody to help you with that, because that's how you're going to overcome some of your fears. And all you have to do is sell it once, first to yourself, and second of all, to the first person. And then after that, you don't go backwards. You just don't go backwards. And so this is you making a decision. So confidence comes from action, not from thinking about it.
Exactly. And I talk about confidence all the time. It's the act of doing. You're not feeling confident the moment you're like, okay, I feel confident. You have to do it so many times. And then you say, you know what? I start to feel confident. If you're a motivational speaker, you are going to, of course, maybe have a little bit of jitters if it's a big audience, but you're still going to be confident. You're going to be like, I know what to say. I've done this before. I'm here. I'm ready. Versus someone who's like, okay, this is day one. I'm learning how to be confident, right? So you have to walk that walk first, and then confidence comes after. It's not so much, okay, read this book or follow this guide and you become confident. You have to kind of do it. I tell clients who are interested in getting a relationship. So one of the things they're not confident, typically I work with men, I work with some women too. Confidence is not necessarily needed for women in the sense of going up and talking to a guy because it's a little bit easier just to say that. So men have to go up to the girl, and then it's always those insecurities, those doubts like, oh, is she going to reject me? I'm going to have to do the walk of shame. And I always tell them, I was like, well, let's just get into the habit of going up and talking to someone without any expectations. Start with a guy, right? Just go up, talk to the guy. Hey, how you doing? How's your day? Oh, everything's good. Cool, 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 right? Boom, right? 5-minute conversation. See you later. Girl now. Go up to the girl. Hey, how you doing? Boom, 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 conversation. We're not getting a number. We're not doing anything. We're just building the habit of talking to people. Now we add the aspect of, okay, do you like someone now? Okay, so you fancy this person. So now it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to be a little bit more nervous, but do the same thing, right? Go up there and just say, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to notice it's just a conversation. Humans are humans. People want to talk to people. Now, sometimes people might be in a bad mood, but you can't really regulate that. So that's going to, sometimes you're going to have failures. In life, you're going to have failures. Sometimes you're going to have business ventures and they just fail. You're just like, that tank, that was not a good idea. Or maybe it was a great idea because it woke me up. Century 21, for example, they had, before that business model, they had a tremendous failure. They lost, I don't know how much money, but they lost so much money, but they learned from those mistakes. And then that's when Century 21 came as the real estate company. So it's like we learn from our failures. And when you have a coach has so much expertise, so much wisdom, so much background knowledge, and they can see all the blind spots. Typically, they can see you hurling toward that cliff and they can stop you and say, hey, 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 we need to stop this. We need to nip this right now. And we need to change our course and then make the changes. And I think that's one of the best things a coach can do, where we can show our clients their blind spots. We can show them ways, guides, plans that saying, hey, I think if we do this, we're going to be in a better place. And it's that trust aspect. How do you ensure trust? Trust is one of those things that I guess is going to be unique to the person. But what are some ways that you help build that trust with clients, new clients, or even past clients?
First of all, you do what you say you're going to do, because that is part of trust. And that means if you're starting your call at 10 o'clock, you're starting your call at 10 o'clock and you're not late. And you're prepared and you've thought about what it is you're doing for that person. That's how you build trust, is doing the small things first and then helping people get results. And once they start seeing results, first they look at other people's results. And then once they start getting results, then you have their trust. And so to me, it's all about walking them through the process of making the right decisions. And so obviously I'm sitting here looking at your website below the Zoom lens, and it's showing your testimonials. Well, your testimonials are talking about how great you are. So that's where trust begins.
Sometimes people are slow to trust, especially if they have trusted someone in the past and they got burned. And I always tell people, sometimes you learn And those lessons can be great because then you don't make those same mistakes again. And you can really vet a person by making sure you ask the right questions versus someone who's just out to get a coin. Typically, not saying that this happens to all people, but if you have like a stockbroker or an insurance broker, they might want to give you the most expensive package or give you these penny stocks, and they're looking at their own pockets. They're not looking at your pockets. They're not looking at your future. What I can say is that most coaches, or the many coaches that I bring on coaching a session, acts as a fiduciary, where basically your best interest is their best interest. And I think that's so important for building trust. It's like, I want to see you succeed. I want to see you win also. And it's not that I don't want you to be ahead of me, right? That's a scarcity type of mindset kicking in. And a lot of people have it. A lot of people don't want to see you do good. Going back to what we said in the beginning, starting a business is scary. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to look at you sideways. Maybe friends and family, they're going to say, why are you doing that? You think you're better than us? It's not that you're better. It's just that you're more willing to put yourself out there. You're not going to allow fear to keep you grounded. You're going to make sure that you go after your dreams and that you give yourself a strong mindset to undergo all the hardships and challenges and then toward the success later on that will come to you. It's inevitable, but you do have to have someone in your corner, someone who's going to help you. I know the work that you do as a business coach, as a business therapist, you help people with their mindset in their business. What needs to be done? How should we be moving? What changes need to occur? And I think that's an important thing to have. So if I can from you, Gail, give us any last words, and then please tell people how they can find you.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Well, I think the most important thing to take away from all of this is that you have a choice in life and you have a choice to be successful, and success is self-defined. Once you figure out what your success is, then build a plan and you can get there. But the fastest plan, the fastest route is to have help. And the quicker we all learn that, the faster we'll get to our destination. So I think that's really what I would just share with all the listeners today. But thank you for allowing me to be on here. You can find us at thepearlcollective.com.
And I know any business person who might be on the brink of collapse or even at the brink of, okay, I need to make some changes, reach out to Gail. I mean, you're going to be in good hands and you're going to be able to really get a good understanding of how your business is running, because you might be running your business into the ground and having a smile. Think of like Gordon Ramsay when he goes to like these restaurant impossible things, where it's like the restaurant owner thinks they're doing so great, but they're losing money every single day. He goes in and he's a wake-up call for them. I think Gail can either be that wake-up call for you, or she could be that call to action to make sure you're doing everything you need in your day to make sure the end results that you have for your business is exactly what you were looking for. So I would like to thank you so much, Gail Doby, for coming on Coaching in Session. A great conversation.
Thanks so much, Michael.